Hi there, welcome to this video all about exercises. My name's Chris Jollett and I'm the creative consultant in education for Samek Music. What I'm going to try and do with this video is link it to the first one, which was all about scales. So firstly, what is an exercise? An exercise for me is a little bit of technique that you pull out and you work on in isolation. And that technique could be something like long notes. You could be working on your sound and your tone. You could be working on articulation, your tonguing, your slurring. So when I was thinking about how to put this video together, I thought probably the best thing to do is show you what I do in one of my warm-ups. So here we go. So what you heard me playing there were quite a lot of long notes, just to get the reed working, get me used to blowing a bit of air through the instrument. I work quite a lot with the overtones and that, so you'll have heard me fingering a lot of the lower notes on the instrument, but voicing some of the higher partials and the harmonics. So the next thing that I'll do just to get my fingers working is play a few scales. So the next part of my warm-up routine, you'll find me just working through a few little exercises that I tend to do. But you'll also find that I start to discover little areas within my practice session. And what that does, that just kickstarts or creates a little exercise that what I'll do, we'll listen to it within my practice session, and then I'll come to it in a little bit more detail later on in this video and show you how I'm working these things out. And a few little ideas that are going to help you build your own exercises in your own warm-up. I just want to mention at this point that I have created a more detailed PDF that goes along with this video. So if you're wanting a little bit more information on how to create these exercises, then all you've got to do is visit my website, sign up to my mailing list. I promise you're not going to get any spam. It's all going to be pretty interesting stuff. And along with some free music, you'll get a PDF of more information on this video. Okay, so first thing is, what was I thinking about when I was creating those exercises and what did those numbers mean? A step that I found really useful when developing my own understanding of scales was thinking about which degree of the scale I was playing as I'm playing that scale. So the first thing to do is number each note of the scale, like this. So just very quickly to look at that from a theory point of view, Our next example here, you can see that we've labelled each degree of the scale as an interval. So the unison, the second, the third, the fourth, and so on until we get to the eighth note of the scale, which we call the octave. So these different intervals do have different names depending on the scale that we're playing. All of these examples that I've played through so far, and all the examples that I'm going to show you in this video, use a major scale. So it would make sense for us to look at what these intervals are in a major scale. Now, as you can see, each degree of the scale is called a major interval. So a major second, a major third, major sixth, major seventh. The only two that are different are the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth, which are exactly the same whether we're playing a major or a minor scale. So if you've never thought about numbering each degree of the scale and working on scales or little exercises like this, I suggest you start with an arpeggio, which should be quite familiar to most of us. The degrees of the scale that you're using in your arpeggio are the first, the third, and the fifth. Okay? What if we were to swap that round though? So instead of playing it in that order, every time starting on the tonic, the first, the third, the fifth, what if we were to swap that round? So we start on the third, move up to the fifth, and drop down to the first, like this. I'll play this in C major. I'm playing this in C major on my tenor sax, so it's a concert pitch B flat. So I'm playing E to the G, down to the C. So two things are happening there. I'm thinking about where my fingers are going, but I'm also listening to what that sounds like. Okay, it's really important you get that idea of what it sounds like, because when you move it to a different key or you move it to a different starting note, you're going to have a better idea of whether it's right or wrong straight away. Okay, think back to the scales video that I did. I gave you a few tools or ways that you could practice your scales. That can be implemented exactly the same way on these exercises. So we could play them chromatically, we could play them whole tone, or we could move them around the circle of fifths. I'm going to move this little exercise around the circle of fifths now. So I'm going to move back into C, and I'm going to move it clockwise. So I'm going to move it into G. Okay, but as I'm playing it in C, I'm thinking about where I'm going next. Okay, I'm thinking carefully about which note I'm going to next. So I'm moving into the key of G, but I'm not playing a G to start with. I need to be thinking about the third degree of that scale. Okay, at no point in any of these exercises are your fingers guessing. That's really important. You must make sure you know exactly where you're going before you move there. Okay, I'll give you the example. I'll play C, this little exercise in C, and I'll move it to G. And as I was playing it in G, my mind was thinking about where I'm going to next. So the next scale along would be D. So I'm thinking about the F sharp, not the D. Okay, so it's really important we're thinking about these degrees of the scale to implement them in little exercises like this. So one thing that you might be thinking about at the moment is, hang on a minute, I have a lot of exercise books for this. Why do I need to be creating them myself? And yes, don't get me wrong, I have the exercise books as well. I think they're really, really useful. But when we're looking at these exercises, when we're reading these exercises, we have that safety net of just reading the notes. Okay, it doesn't necessarily train us to listen or think about where we're going next. And I think that's really, really important. It's important. Yes, don't get me wrong, these are important. You must make sure that you use them because that's improving your reading. It's not necessarily helping us build our confidence in internalizing what these notes actually sound like. So what I'm suggesting here is ways that you can create your own exercises that are going to help your ear just as much as it's going to help your fingers. Take you back to the recording of my warm-up a little bit earlier in this video and show you a few different ways that I created these exercises through what I was already playing. So you remember part of my warm-up, I was playing through the tune to the Eternal Triangle, the Sunny Stick tune, and I found that rising arpeggio with the seventh on there. Practiced it in isolation, and then what I did, I moved it through different keys. I can't remember which way I moved that one. I might have moved it through chromatically, but again, that just shows you that you can move it chromatically, whole tone, through the circle of fifths. Again, none of this was written down. It's all stuff that I've learned by ear and then taken that exercise that little step further. The other short exercise that we got out of that was linked quite closely to the scale in thirds. So I will have been playing through my scales in thirds, which you can see just here is how it's built. And you can see the bracketed notes there is that little section that I pulled out. For some reason, I just decided playing that, but I also put a different rhythm to that as well. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier on in this video, an exercise is just pulling out one aspect of your playing and focusing in on that. What I've shown you in this video is you don't have to read them all the time. You can create your own exercises. What I've also tried to do is focus on the scales, kind of just to link with the first video I made on scales, just so there's a little bit of continuity there. But remember, exercises could be on any part of your technique. It could be something on articulation. It could be something on the upper range of your instrument, the lower range of your instrument, a certain finger pattern that might be quite tricky for your instrument. It could be absolutely anything. As I've also mentioned, there is a PDF that goes along with this video. There's a little bit more information on there of how you can use these techniques and build them into your practice session. One thing that is included in that PDF that I've not mentioned in this video is how closely linked this idea of numbering at every degree of the scale is to jazz, and how much that can help you, especially when you're learning your jazz scales. All you've got to do is visit my website, chrisjolly.com, sign up to my mailing list, and along with some free music, you'll also get the PDF. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this, and I will see you again next time.